What's up, guys? Welcome to Whiskey. My name is Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and every once in a while I'll throw in other whiskey related content. Today we're doing a list. I'm going to go through all of the world whiskeys that I own, and I'm going to rank them. Stick around. So I was going through my world whiskeys a few weeks back, and I realized a couple things. First of all, I realized I don't have a lot of world whiskeys on me at the moment. I should probably get more. World whiskey is always really fun to explore. And second, I don't think, or I think very few people would be interested in watching a full review of these whiskeys. After all, this is YouTube. All hail the algorithm, but I know that when people tune into this channel, they're looking for something sexy and Scottish. They're looking for something like this, or this, or this, or this. But that's not going to deter me from talking about these whiskeys. I did pay for them. They're interesting whiskeys. So I'm going to share all of them here with you guys today in a list as a ranking because algorithm. Now, I'm not going to be including stuff like Japanese whiskey or Irish whiskey, which are big enough to be their own independent categories. And I'm not going to be including any Indian whiskey because I don't happen to have any right now.
What? Jeff, you don't have any Indian whiskey?
No, I don't have any Indian whiskey. Not at the moment. They're very good though. I do love them. Calm down. By the way, this is not like a top 5 list or a top anything list. This is just me talking about the whiskeys that I happen to have on my shelf at the moment. Like I said, I don't currently have a lot of world whiskeys. So this is just me sharing what I've got. Simple as that. So yeah, 5 interesting and somewhat obscure world whiskeys ranked. As usual, I do have a mystery pour in my glass over here. It is a fantastic whiskey. Probably the best whiskey in this video. Make sure you stick around after the list. I'll share with you what that is. And I suppose that's it. Let's not waste time. Let's jump into our list. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So kicking things off at the bottom of the list at number 5, we've got a Milk and Honey expression. This one is their Elements Peated Cask. Milk and Honey is a pretty new distillery out of Tel Aviv in Israel. And some of their whiskeys are very good. I've had some incredible IBs from them. I do like their Apex series. This one is fine. Now, I don't hate it, but I don't think it's great either. This one has spent time in ex-bourbon casks as well as casks that previously held peated whiskey from Islay. It is no age stated. It is craft presented. It's generally quite affordable. Again, not a bad whiskey, but definitely not for me. Personally, for me, when I have whiskeys that are unpeated but were finished or matured in casks that previously held peated whiskey, the results can be a bit lackluster. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, but I don't think this one is one of them. The whiskey does taste a little bit flat to me, but it is good enough, but still comes in at the bottom of the list at number 5, Milk and Honey Elements Peated. Next up, we're moving over to Wales. Now, Wales does have some standing in the world of whiskey, but it's not too well known. I think for the most part, when people think of Wales, they don't think of whiskey. They probably think of consonants. But they definitely are a burgeoning whiskey producing country, and by far their best known distillery is Penderyn, which I believe is also the oldest. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I've got a Penderyn with me here today. This one is the sherry cask. Unlike the Milk and Honey, this is a whiskey that I do like. I do recommend it. It's not going to blow you away, but for their entry-level expressions, actually Penderyn has some really solid options out there. This is one of them. We've got good flavor, we've got good balance, and I believe this is the most affordable whiskey on this entire list. Or at least in my market anyway, this one is the cheapest on this list, and for me, it's a really nice casual sipper. It does have its own thing going on. Penderyn doesn't taste like Scotch, but if you enjoy Scotch, you will be able to enjoy this one. It's sherried, but it's not too sherried, which means we have the cask influence, but we can also enjoy the distillate underneath. So it's got a lot of things going for it, and yeah, it's a recommended one. So coming in at number 4, Penderyn Sherrywood. Okay, so coming in at number 3, we've got a Taiwanese entry. This one is the Nanto Omar Bourbon Cask. So this is not a Cavalan, it's from the Nanto Distillery. Now this one is pretty easily available here in East Asia. I know that in some parts of Europe this is marketed as Usan, and I'm not sure if it's the same liquid inside, although I believe it is. But I also know that the Nanto name itself is available in some areas in the West, so I'm not too sure what's happening there. Regardless, this is good stuff. It's probably not going to rock your world, but it's got this really classic bourbon forward profile, and I enjoy that. It's no age stated, it is craft presented. For me, this one's probably the Scotchiest whiskey on this list. Like, the profile is not too far off from sort of like this classic Highland profile, and it's just really solid stuff. Now, I don't know what this sells for abroad, but I am sure it's more expensive, hopefully not too expensive. I know this is sold in quite a few markets, as I said, here in East Asia. I've seen it in Malaysia, I think Singapore, definitely in Japan, and I do know that it's available in Europe. I don't know if Americans have access to the Nanto distillery stuff. Let me know if you're in the States and you've ever seen this before. Let me know down below in the comments. But yeah, if you can find it and the price is fair, good whiskey, check it out. Coming in at number 3, Nanto Omar Bourbon Cask. Next up, coming in at number 2, we've got something from Sweden. This one is the McMurry Bjork Savv. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. In Swedish, Bjork means birch and Savv means sap. So this one was matured in casks that previously held birch sap wine, which is different. What's cool about McMurry is they can be very experimental with their casks and their production techniques because they're not held to the same rigid set of standards that Scotch is. So they have a lot of really interesting, cool cask plays that they've done. My favorite from them was probably, they had a green tea release where the whiskey was matured in barrels that had previously held Oloroso sherry, but also they dumped in a bunch of Japanese green tea leaves into the cask, and then eventually they made a whiskey out of that. And I know it sounds weird and gimmicky. It was really good. Anyway, outside of our birch sap wine casks, we also have bourbon casks in here. We have Oloroso sherry casks, and we have Swedish oak casks. Now for me, this one is an after dinner sipper because it is a little bit on the sweet side. So that is something to be aware of. If you're sensitive to sweetness, this one might not be for you. So sweet, yes, but it's also very bright. It's very clean. This one doesn't taste like Scotch. It does taste like something different, but again, the flavors are familiar enough. It's craft presented, and yeah, it's just really good, really interesting stuff. So it's recommended. Coming in at number 2, McMurry Bjork Savv. Coming in at number 1, we've got another milk and honey offering, but this one is from one of their more premium lines. And outside of the mystery pour, this one is the most expensive whiskey on this list, but it's also the best whiskey on this list, outside of the mystery pour. This one's part of their Apex series, which are usually cask strength limited edition releases. This one is the Dead Sea. So this one spent time in casks in the Dead Sea region, which I think is like something like 423 meters below sea level. It's very low, it's very hot, it's very dry. I'm sure there's a lot of angel share there. Apparently a lot of this whiskey got lost to evaporation, which is why it's only a few years old. Now, I know that sometimes these warm weather, these warm climate whiskeys can get a bad rap because oftentimes they're not going to have the same level of nuance that you'll get from something that's matured in a cooler climate over a very long period of time. And that's true, but that doesn't mean the whiskeys are always going to be bad. This is a really good one. Is this stuff absolutely amazing? No, but it is really good, and it makes me want to explore more from the Apex line and just more from milk and honey in general. And setting aside this release specifically, I think Milk and Honey is a brand to watch. I think they'll be making waves in the world of world whiskey. I think they're going to help put Israel on the map when it comes to whiskey. So yeah, check them out. Check this one out. Milk and Honey, Dead Sea, at number 1. All right, that was it. That was my list. That was my ranking of the world whiskeys that I currently have. So keep in mind, it's not a top 5. It's not a top anything. It's just I'm dealing with the whiskey that I've got on me. Now, of course, I do want to hear from you. What are some world whiskeys that you currently have on your shelf? Or maybe what are some world whiskeys that you would recommend that I try? Let me know down below. And finally, for those of you who stuck around to find out what my mystery pour is here, if you're familiar with the channel, you might already know that I live in Taiwan, so my choice is probably not going to surprise many of you. I've got the Kavalan Solist Port Cask. Now, this one is not my favorite Solist, but it is the only one I've got on me at the moment. My favorite Solist would be the Vino, so if you can get your hands on that one over this one, I do recommend that one first. But the port is also really good. It's rich, it's full-bodied, it's dense, it's complex, really good stuff. Now, I do realize that Kavalan sells for a pretty penny in the West, so it's a tough one to recommend just based on value. But it's such a great whiskey, so hopefully you guys get the chance to at least sample it at some point. You know, try a sample, or maybe someone shares it with you, or sure, you know, if you're a big spender, grab your own bottle. But Kavalan it's a great whiskey and it's worth trying. And I guess that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, subscribe. And again, I do want to hear from you. What are the world whiskeys that you are into? God, I can't speak English. What are the world whiskeys that you are into? What are the world whiskeys you recommend? Leave them down below. And we'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.